I can't do it. How?
Is rolling your tongue and doing that, is that a genetic thing? Is that one of those genetic things? The
I did it. Okay. Okay, cool. Right, let's do this.
Hi, Yani.
Hi, James.
Welcome back. Thank you for being here again on the second episode of Diversity Unplugged by Diversifying Group. Thank
The
you.
second episode.
Second official episode. We had a bonus episode. The last thing
Okay.
in the feed for dear listener was a bonus episode where we talked about popular culture because we're cool and hip. But this is the
Nice.
second flagship episode on the
Ooh.
flagship podcast of Diversifying Group. I've decided it's our flagship podcast.
Okay. So you said that, and all I could think of was Eurovision. It's like we're flying the flag.
I'm happy to try and implement that somehow into maybe a revision of the theme. Maybe in May when Eurovision comes around, I'll
Oh, wonderful. Can't
integrate a bit of
wait.
scooch.
Yeah, and we'll get the trolleys out. That'd be great.
Okay, so this is going to be now an in-person podcast.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We'll have the uniform, do the dance routine. Yeah, I got it.
Good. Um, how are you? How have you been? What's been your thing of the week or the thing of
My
the month
thing of
since
the
we last
week.
spoke, I guess?
Thing of the week and the thing of the
What's new?
month. What's new? Oh gosh, I feel
Any of
what
the
am I?
above?
Uh, what has been new? I don't actually know. Oh, actually, you know what? Here's the thing. I finished therapy, so I've been progressing with myself, and
Yay.
I felt really good. And this time in winter, comes into a very like sad period because it's dark outside and miserable. And
Mm,
I feel like really good about going into it because I feel like really strong and confident with myself. And
good.
yeah, I'm happy. So yeah, I've been developing myself and I feel happy.
That's nice.
Yeah. What's new with you?
So next week, so I'm part of I lead some choirs for those that don't
Uh-huh.
know. I bet you know that. And we had a final rehearsal yesterday with my second choir, and it was a disco remix of Carol of the Bells,
Oh, wow. All right.
which is absolutely wild. It's been so much fun. And then in the
Uh-huh.
middle there, it has a little line of "You can ring my bell."
Oh,
And it absolutely slaps. It is so good. I'm not.
okay.
I sometimes perform with them. I'm not performing with them this time. I'm going to go just watch them, um, and just have a bit of fun to yeah, unwind because I don't want to have to learn the songs properly like I did the last few times. So yeah, that's been my highlight. Gonna go watch them
Nice.
and see my little choir babies all grown up
Oh,
for
that's cute.
Christmas. Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone, or just probably just me then, is imagining the pitch perfect, like the battle in like the pool. And that's all I think, the Carol of the Bells. Like that's yeah. Pitch
It's
perfect
not
K style.
it's not quite that that I don't want to say camp, but Hollywood. It's not that
Okay.
saccharine. Um, it's funner than that. We're
Oh,
fun. We're
fun.
structured fun in a good way.
TM.
Yeah, not in a bad way. So this week, or this month, this episode,
Yeah.
this today, we
Mhm.
are talking with Marlene from not OpenAI, not at all.
No.
No. So this week, we are talking with Marlene from Empire AI.
Ooh,
Um, that uses AI to plan offices and real estate spaces to be more efficient.
nice.
Um, do you read about AI much? Do you do much about with AI? Is that your thing that you
It's
sit and
funny
read
you
about?
asked, James, because I wrote a white paper a few months ago. I don't know if you
You
know about this.
did?
Yeah, all about AI and the biases in AI.
Mm,
And I went through all the protected characteristics based in UK.
mm.
Um, and why it's biased and how it can help those protected characteristics, but also the drawbacks. So
Mm.
yeah, if
And
you
where can
haven't
you
read
find
it,
that white paper?
oh, you can find it on our website,
Which
in
is
the resources section. Oh, diversifying group dot
diversifying.com, maybe, Yani?
diversify. You know what? It's just on my. I have it on my favorites, and I just don't. Okay, it's you can find it on our website at diversifying.com in the media center.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Or you should do what Yani does, which is favorite it, and then you won't need to remember it.
Yeah,
So
and
that
you
it's
can read it
always there.
all the time. And every time
Hmm
you read ChatGPT, you can have a slight panic and read that too.
So we are joined by Marlene from Empire AI. We're joined by Yani King from Diversifying Group, and I am James, the digital marketing consultant for Diversifying Group. Welcome, Marlene. Could you start by
Thank
introducing
you.
yourself a little bit? Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah. So I'm a founder of a company called Empire AI, which is a prop tech company. We're working to make the planning of offices and real estate more data driven and fact based, and using AI models to create better and more sustainable office buildings, basically.
Okay,
So I'm the CTO and co-founder, and I also have a background then in machine learning. And I wrote a thesis that specifically focused on gender bias in machine learning and in early stage investment.
cool. All right. And why did you choose AI to kind of address this aspect of, I guess, society, life?
Because I worked in commercial real estate for a long time, and I saw how sort of how based on gut feelings it is. You know, you're just guessing your way to establishing real estate when you really don't have to. You have a lot of data. So for me, it was just kind of the obvious choice because there's so much potential there in order to make, you know, better buildings, more people-centric buildings, and more sustainable buildings if you use data and if you use AI. So huge potential there. Um, and it's quite a conservative industry as well. So that
Mm.
makes the potential even larger, I would say.
Yeah. So what kind of improvements have you seen? Like, I mean, I guess it's hard to measure, like, what does your gut do versus like what does tech do? But what kind of improvements have you broadly seen applying AI in this context?
Mm. Mainly to have a better match between how buildings are actually used and how we would like them to be, and how we plan them. Today there's a huge gap in that area. So you know you plan a lot of space that is just never used. You want people to use it. Like if you're an architect or a planner, you're like, yeah, this is going to be a great space, because so and so, and then you know they would call it almost a human error if you know it's not used the way that they plan. So just in order to plan better, better square meters, I would say more appropriate square meters in terms of how it's actually used and what we actually want
Mm.
to
Mm.
get out of it.
And is there like a major difference that you always see that like your software will always like include that isn't normally or regularly included in a traditionally planned space versus an AI planned space? Or is it always very different every time?
Um, I would say it's quite different. You know, it's depending on, you can do an easy example is meeting rooms, right? So the way that meeting rooms are developed today, we they are just too big. So one fact that we found is that, you know, 12% of meetings have 7 participants or less, while 57% of meeting rooms are can cater to 7 people or more. So
Mhm.
it's
Right.
just a huge gap. And right now, our data shows that 55% of all meetings taking place in meeting rooms actually just have 2 participants or 1 participant, which is
Oh.
Right.
insane. While the average number of chairs in a meeting room is 9,
Right.
right?
Okay.
So just
So it's
stuff like
like
that is
so much
important.
wasted space, which is what you were saying before. It's just like it's
Exactly.
I when I
And when
was
you
when you
plan
because
it, yeah,
of
sorry.
course when I was thinking of wasted space, I was just like, is it just like empty floor space or like just desks surrounding like an empty circle, but like no, of course it's like rooms being too inappropriately sized for their use. Yeah, I was just imagining a desolate like office floor with one chair going, we did an office. But
Yeah.
it's obviously not that.
I mean, since the pandemic,
I mean,
hooray.
yeah, that is more accurate, yeah.
It's more accurate, yeah, because most people are just like, oh, let's work from home now. Everyone, it works for everyone.
Mm,
Yeah.
And now you just go to Canary Wharf and it's just a desolate space.
yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. How do you build inclusivity into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think there's a lot of variables there that you have to account for, from everything, from the flexibility of work that should
Mm,
really be accounted for. And also, how it caters to different types of people. But yeah, it's definitely something that we think about.
mm. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about the accessibility of spaces, particularly for
Yeah.
because there's a huge thing in like in the UK where they've basically built buildings that were like, oh yeah, disabled people, totally forgot about them. So they have to unfairly sign a waiver, say like, oh, there's a fire, you can stay here. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
there's things of like people just having to sign waivers of like, yeah, we'll just stay here and burn. And that's meant to be okay. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's a 60-minute fire door, so it'll be fine. Don't they'll get you before then, so
Fine.
everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah. And this is a tangent, but one of the things from the Grenfell inquiry, there's it's disproportionately affected people with disabilities, and one thing I wanted to campaign for was like ensuring that the safety of disabled people as an outcome of the Grenfell inquiry, and the government was like, nah, don't want to do that, but they've got a lot of things to accept with that inquiry, let's just say.
Mm.
Yeah.
But Theresa May did cry when she resigned as Prime Minister, so that's what we should all be focusing on. So yeah.
Yay.
Um, so moving on to kind of like more general AI stuff, because part of this podcast is that it's kind of slow news. I know this is probably the least slowest of news that's going on because what's happening with OpenAI is probably still forever unfolding. Um, to like recap for the audience, Sam, the CEO of OpenAI, was suddenly fired from his job. OpenAI is the non-profit company which creates ChatGPT. And yeah, he was randomly fired on Friday, hired to Microsoft on Saturday, unhired from Microsoft on Sunday, and then rehired back to OpenAI, I think on Monday or Tuesday, with his entire board resigning to then be restructured, and that restructuring is now ongoing. Um, Broad and a hard question at the same time, but like, what do you think of that? Because that definitely sent shockwaves around all of tech, because it was kind of I think it was one of technology's biggest moments since Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Like it was that kind of huge founder just being like sucked out of their company that they'd started. I wondered if you had any thoughts about what went on at all. I'm just curious.
Well, I think it's been really exciting to follow, and it's I think what is good about it is that you now see the structure of the company and like what's actually going on is easier to follow because now there's something exciting. So to read about the company, so a lot more people have like gone into and looked at just what you said, how it's structured, how there's a non-profit part, how there's a profit part. I think previously there's a lot about how OpenAI was a nonprofit because it has been, and I think a lot of people thought that it still was, that they're not after making money. Well, that's simply not true. They are today. They were a nonprofit, and now they're structured in different ways. So I think that part is exciting, and just seeing how. Well, I'm really excited about what happens, or curious to what actually happened.
Mm,
Mm,
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, what
yeah.
is going on? Like, why would the nonprofits part of it say that this is so bad? They fired him. And
mm,
Mm,
knowing that he's the founder, knowing that he's, a very public figure, and a time for this company that's super important, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think that's no.
I can't wait for the dramatized version of Disney Plus or other streaming sites.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm sure.
Who do
Yeah.
you think is going to play Sam Altman?
Yeah. Who would play Sam Alton? He's quite young, so it'd be I don't know, maybe Timothy Chalamet. They'll make it really dramatic.
Mhm.
Make him speak a bit of
No.
French in the middle.
Maybe Harris Dickinson. I think that'd be a good one. He's
Hmm.
coming. Or what's it called? No, he's this guy, Jacob Elordi. He's coming up. Maybe then.
Ooh, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, coming streaming services soon in, I don't know, 2025.
No, Netflix will spit it out in 6 months.
Yeah,
They're quick to
I
that kind of stuff.
I think ChatGPT should direct it, and it will be a lot faster out.
Oh yeah.
They'll get it
It's
to write
gonna
the
be here
first
in a
script.
week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's really but the thing about OpenAI that has done a lot of has such a huge impact on I guess the world and at least society, like part of society, because their main like famous product, ChatGPT, has only been around for a year
Yeah.
ish. Um, so I like have you noticed a difference in what people expect from your software or how they expect it to behave as a result of ChatGPT's like explosive existence? Because I guess everyone's expecting some kind of chat window to interact with AI now. So do you find that people now expect your software to behave differently as a result of the like universal availability of AI products?
Yeah, for sure. And it's been great for us because, all the attention and hype around AI is helping us. But it's also, yeah, like you said, expectations are changing. And I think one of the big expectations is that, ChatGPT has now become the sort of definition of AI, which it is
Mm,
not, right? It's just one type of AI. It's a large language model. It cannot solve the problems that we're solving in Empire because it's a language model. It's not a decision making model in that sense, and a predictive model in that sense that we're talking about. But now everyone's kind of expecting, to be able to just ChatGPT can solve it. So
mm,
ChatGPT will help me plan, a great office space or give me ideas and stuff like that. And that expectation is a bit, I would say difficult to meet because you want to say, you can't really do that. But then you
mm.
have to explain all of the time why.
Yeah.
But it's definitely for the better change, probably how we're going to interact with AI models, which I think is super interesting,
Mm.
that you can talk to it more than, just input variables and stuff like that.
Yeah. So do you feel the pull of do you see I mean you don't have to reveal your product roadmap, but like do you see like the pull of that like want that people have to be able to interact with software in a specific way? Because it's very human. Like everyone basically wants a Star Trek universe of being able to talk to a computer or like write something down to a computer and it just does it. So with that
Yeah.
like pull in mind of what people are expecting, do you find yourself being pushed in that direction of trying to figure out an interface that kind of meets that probably for now unrealistic expectation, but will probably be reality sometime in the future?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's funny how people also think that everything we do now is somehow connected to AI. Like, um, someone got a message from me and they're like, "Was that actually AI?" Sending that message. Like, yeah. But yeah, the expectations, is how there's really high expectations to how AI should just be able to solve most things. So both an expectation which people are kind of excited about, but also then, the next minute they're worried because like what happens to my job, what happens to
Mm,
human society, all of that. But in terms of expectations, they are really high for everyone
yeah.
now, and what AI should solve. So probably there's going to be, a down, a fall from that
Mm,
eventually, because you know, AI can do a lot of exciting things now and in the coming, you know, short term, but probably not at the level that people are actually expecting
Yeah.
right now.
No Star Trek computer, except for if anyone has an Alexa, you can change the wake word to computer to live your Star
Yeah.
Trek fantasy, which I did at my parents' house when I visited them one day, and so they were then just they were just yelling at their Alexas, going, Alexa! And I just went, computer, do this. And they went, what? I switched it back, but that was a great 5 minutes. I really enjoyed that. I have also definitely been in the position as a customer on the other end, not knowing if a real person has replied to my message going like, "Are you real?" And then the reply is like, "Yeah, I'm real." And I go like, "But wouldn't a computer that is pretending to be real say that they're real? Like, I don't know that you're
True.
real." And they're like, "I am real." Like,
Yeah,
okay then.
I get that as well, and I try to be as polite as possible to people just in case it is a real human. So I'm just saying thank you, and I'm like, is this a bot I'm saying thank you to? And I'm just hoping that, when the inevitable rise of the computers and the rage of war of computers, that they'll be nice to me because I was nice too.
They'll remember that you said thank you.
Thank you all the time and say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. I find myself doing that to ChatGPT all the time, suddenly talking to it as if it was a human, thank you, please. And we talked about this previously.
That's cute. Yeah. My dad talks to like Alexa, like she's a proper human. And every time she does something,
Yeah.
he's always like, thank you, Alexa, that was really nice. And and it's always surprising. I'm just like, does he what?
That reminds me of there was that viral video a few years ago of the of I think it was an Italian grandma who got given a Google Assistant for present, birthday, Christmas, and they were teaching her how to use it, and they were using the wait word of Hey Google, and I have one in my living room, so it's gonna definitely go off. But they'll go like Hey Google, and she was going like Hey Google, and it just wasn't replying because she couldn't quite get all of the right noises out, and so she kept on just like going Hey Google, hey, and just started like screaming at it, and it never. My,
There she
here we,
is, doing
there she
her.
is.
Yes.
Always
Yeah.
listening. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I love that's delightful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um,
That also kind of highlights again, it's like a slight bias, well, a slight bias, a bias in accents. And like, I know it's getting
Mhm.
better and then things are learning, but there is still that thing of like the how AI still can't 100% get your accent. So my mum is Indonesian and she does have an accent, even though she's lived here for years and years, and she still has a very strong accent. And Alexa has no idea what she's saying, and then they'll just give the most random results. It is funny, but also at the same time, it's just like it's not really helping everyone. It's only helping the majority.
Yeah. There was
Yeah.
a time, I don't know if this is still the case, but yeah, in the beginning, it definitely understood male voices better
Yeah.
than female voices, just because that's what it's trained on.
mm,
Mm.
and couldn't
Probably the same with
understand
accents.
anyone that was Scottish either. When
Mm.
Siri first came out, couldn't understand a Scottish accent at all.
Mm. Alexa just told me the other day, actually, she couldn't do a Scottish accent. She couldn't mimic one. For some reason, this is like as part of a fun fact that you get.
Mm.
Can you just
And
ask
she
Another.
decided to
Alexa?
impart that.
Ask, ask Alexa now.
I
I
don't
don't know
have an
how I
Alexa.
don't I have to go plug her in
Mm.
because like she was just listening to too much and I just got paranoid
Yeah.
about it, so I just turned her off.
And I guess that neatly segues into another part of like I guess bias in voice assistants, which is like broadly AI, but not quite the AI that we've been talking about. When I was kind of researching stuff to talk about for this podcast, one thing that came up was just voice assistant voices,
Mm.
and how, at least at the beginning, they were all predominantly female or female sounding. Siri's voice is female. My Google Assistant voice, I haven't changed it. The default is female. Alexa
Mm.
is female. And I know also Siri, I can't remember, but Siri is is a Norse, I think it's a Norse god, and it's a female Norse god. Um, I'll look it up in a second, but yeah, I wonder, I guess I wonder to us, to this conversation, like what kind of what that is reinforcing, like having all female voice assistants, if that has a net positive or a net not positive to our social fabric, if we are basically programming computers that perform tasks for us, and they're always female voices, if that does any good for us as humanity.
I mean,
You can choose, can't you, on Google
You can, but it's more about the
Home
fact that
now?
they
Yeah,
are
yeah,
defaulting to female.
yeah.
Um,
yeah,
That assistants are female. Yeah,
mm,
yeah, it just definitely reinforces the thing of servitude.
yeah.
and and it really, yeah, like the technology does really impact like the next generation. So like if you ask like a kid to, ask them to what's the sign for phone, like before it used to be our the thumb and the pinky, and we put it to our face, but now it's just the palm. And so if that's just like one thing of technology, or physical technology, how is like reinforcing, assistants to be a default as female, it's just reinforcing a thing of servitude again, but with this technology. And I know that you can like change voices now, but it's still the default. Yeah.
It's interesting to because what do you use it for? Alexa and Siri has been I think more, assistants, right?
Mm,
mm,
While now with OpenAI and ChatGPT, you're using it more as like, I don't know, not necessarily just an assistant, but more
mm,
as like a colleague almost, or someone that you ask questions to learn something.
mm,
And it would be sad if, the previous ones have been female because they're assistants, and now that we move over to, the more, higher level, I would say,
mm,
AI, then it's going to be male. That wouldn't
mm.
be great either.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a survey out there. I mean, who like of like what's people's perceptions of all of this, like all these language models and AI. What is the perception of gender with them? There
Yeah.
must be like a survey out there, but I'm curious about that. I might actually have a look afterwards.
I know in the research I did for in like gender bias in early
Mm,
stage investment, there was two pitches or one pitch that was either by a female voice or a male voice.
mm,
And when it was by a male voice, first of all, 60, like more, a lot higher probability that people were going to invest, but they also rated it as much more, it was like fact-based and persuasive and logical
mm,
than they would if it was by a female voice. Exactly everything else was equal.
Mm. That's
mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's also just like, that's just sorry, it's the thing of like the next thing in AI as well. It's like right now it's very much this spits out the facts, but then the
Mm.
next bit is going to be like more human. Does
Yeah.
that mean they're going to be more female if it's more emotion orientated? And is that the positive now? It's changing.
Mm. Have you watched the movie Her? Like a quite old
I
movie now.
I haven't, but everyone tells me I should watch it.
Me too.
So that's, that's a female voice assistant basically, but
Mm.
that just gets super smart, and it's the voice of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, really nice voice.
Mm,
um, but then, in that sense, in that movie, then, she becomes really, really smart. And then
Mm.
it's different because then you're kind of, that it's not an assistant anymore that you talk to in that way. But then the relationship also becomes quite sexual, so not great
mm,
either.
Yeah.
mm. But I guess before that, is that then, I guess that's kind of subverting the expectation of what that I guess thing, because it's not human, but like what that character is. Um, I guess it's positively subverting those expectations, I suppose. I've yet to see the film. I would like to. It is on my like really
Yeah.
long list of like I'll
Mm.
get round to it,
Yeah.
because it is definitely interesting. It would interest me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so talking about your dissertation, um, would you mind, a hard question again, I guess, but like, would you mind, could you condense it and summarize a little bit what it was about, and maybe some like really interesting like takeaways that you kind of found from what you were researching?
Yeah. So basically, it was researching whether, if we make machine learning models based on the data that we have today on investment decision making, whether, a startup should be funded or not, because investment companies today are using these types of models more and more, but they train it on historic data. Less than 1% of VC funding goes to female founders today, which is quite insane. So if you make models based on that data, it's gonna sort of just amplify that gender bias, and basically bottom line, as female founders would be screwed, right? Because then funding decisions can be made by machines. Everyone thinks machines are unbiased and not sexist, and that's just simply not the case at all. So what can we do, to make this better? And how can we, because I also looked at what kind of bias is being programmed into from historical data today. One of the studies that I looked at, that was a study just simply on how you can create machine learning models to predict startup success. And then, as an investor, you would theoretically use this model to make your investment decisions. And the study simply stated that, the number of male founders is an important predictor of success. It was the fourth most important variable. It doesn't comment on it. It just simply states that this is, this is a good predictor. Number of male founders in the founding team. That's it. And then the other two were education and geography. And you can imagine how much other types of bias are in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's
feels
the
really
sound
icky.
of
Yeah, not great. But yeah, so if you just leave it at that and you create, so that's what I did in my dissertation. I created a model, a machine learning model to predict startup success, and then looked at how different techniques could either amplify or decrease the gender bias for that model. And there are definitely, the good thing is there are lots of techniques that you can program into or the model to make it more fair, less biased. The bad news is that no one really does that.
Yeah.
What
We were
kind of
talking about,
things?
I was just we were talking about earlier about like the drama that is ChatGPT and OpenAI. They had that team that was specifically created to try and address all these biases, and then they were like, no, and then they just got rid of all of them. So like just like that. So again, it just emphasizes that, yeah, we could do that, but let's not.
Even those people, the people who are creating these models, who know that the way that, a machine learning model works, we still have this kind of notion towards, the machines being unbiased and objective, which is so weird because they know that it's not, they know how it's made. They've seen how
Yeah.
the sausage is made.
It's just like a lot of things are like, oh, diversity and inclusion is just like, yeah, that's an add-on. It's just like, in this case, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Actually, in lots of cases, it's not either. It's essential.
Yeah.
So,
Not even an afterthought. But
yeah.
the good news is, if you ask, so I've asked ChatGPT, for example, to create an image or tell a story about a founder, just as a test. And it told a story about a female founder in tech and science, even. And I had to ask, this is probably not because this is not from your training data. This is something else. And it said, yes, because this is a field that is, inherently biased, I do this to challenge the stereotype.
Oh, interesting.
That was good. Yeah.
I didn't know you could ask ChatGPT that. I'd never really ever thought to go like, how did you come to this conclusion? Yeah, I just
You
never really
should.
thought to do
It's
that.
interesting. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah. There's lots of things of people like trying to break ChatGPT, which is fun. And then they try to do it, just try to like, try to make it biased, even though it's trying not to be biased. It's really interesting. But like even though they had this research team that was trying to de-bias things, and they were like, no. But then they started displacing all of the people who were like de-biasing the system into like different countries. So have you seen things around they've done it in like Kenya and then somewhere in like Latin America. They've just, so all these people are being exposed to some horrific things, particularly racist things, and then to be like, yeah, we have to correct it. So they're displacing the costs. Yeah.
Just keep seeing you like go backwards to like make the light turn back on again.
Turns on, yeah, really fast. Turns off really fast.
It's all for the planet.
Yeah.
It's all for the planet. Yeah, so you said, so what, so you came up with some recommendations on interventions that you could make to make machine learning models less gender biased. What were some of those recommendations? And are they easy to implement? Because I guess the also impetus behind the question is like, I mean, there's never any excuse, but is there like really extra no excuse if it's just doing a couple of changes, or is it like fundamental, like taking everything up, putting it in the bin and starting again?
So some of it is just like, some mathematical techniques, but it also depends on, so one of the most difficult things is what is fair, right? So is it fair that, if you think about it in, is it fair that founders from or certain schools are funded to a higher extent, or with a certain education are funded to a higher extent than others? You have to think of like, okay, what is a fair outcome? Because then you can mathematically change how the outcome is calculated. You can reweigh a lot of it to make different decisions so that it doesn't amplify the bias that is found in the data, if that makes sense, right? So, but what is fair then? Would it be fair that it would fund 50-50 of the companies? So basically, what do you think would be fair if you imagine you made a model for hiring? Would you want it to hire? Would you want it because if you see that, okay, it favors people that went to Cambridge, for example, or that went to private school? That's definitely something that happens, right? And is that fair? Yes or no? And what would you do to change it? Would you make it and just hire others? Because I mean, if you think of the outcome being like a successful career, if you're not hired, you're obviously never going to get to that point. And it's the same within investment. If you never get funded in the first place, you're obviously not going to be successful. It's really hard to talk about what is actually fair. And even for us sitting here now, like it wouldn't be easy to say what is fair. And so who decides?
That's the question that comes up a lot, I think, in like recruitment. It's like we have all these like stats, and we have all that data. It's just like, what is the fairness? And every time I go back to it, it's just like, okay, so there's lots of different factors, and that's like, what's the other data around it? Not just this one piece of data. There's so many things that will influence it. So like the geography of where you are, the demographics, and the pathways of like the fairness of the opportunity. And there's so many things.
Yeah.
A good specific example of that in play was in a previous employer that I worked for. They were hiring for a technical role, and they hired I can't remember who they hired for it, but the issue they had was they had about 20 candidates, around I think it was 16 or 17 of them were men, and then they had the rest were cisgender men, and the rest were either female or non-binary. They it was a controvert it was I don't think it should be controversial. It was one of the female candidates got the job, and I thought they were a really good hire, but the rumblings across the workplace were going like, oh well, they were hired, this is not fair. Um but it did make me think kind of the other way of going like, well, if 16 or 17 of these candidates were male, like just by nature of just, you know, closing your eyes and pointing around a room and just stopping at someone, you're probably going to hire a man. And like I'm sure like all lots of those men were wonderfully qualified for the position.
Mm,
Um, but like if your candidate pool looks like that, like you are more likely just to hire a man anyway, and they will be very competent. But like if no one even has the opportunity for those positions, then you're not even gonna start to move the needle on
mm,
stuff like gender bias in
Yeah.
hiring.
yeah.
And the company eventually recognized that, especially with all minorities, like minority ethnic people, like women, because it's a tech company, so they basically have like deficiencies in every department if you're not like a
Mm.
white straight man.
Mm.
um and so they then recognize going, well, we've removed, like we do CV blinding and all that kind of stuff to get the right people in the room. But
Mm.
then there's still bias that an interviewer has when they meet them. But they recognize that only that goes so far, because if the people that are applying for your job, 80% of them are male and then 20% of them are other in every sense,
Mm,
you're gonna hire a man probably just by nature. So they started investing in other programs to basically raise the profile of technology in education, to basically eventually bring more people to the table when it comes to interviewing, which is, I think, ultimately how you probably solve that problem, because it has to
mm,
start earlier. Because once you've got to the point of opening a requisition for a job and you've got
mm.
majority men applying, I think you've already lost to some
Mm.
extent.
Yeah, I mean, there's the start of creating the talent pool from an early point, but also it's just
Mm,
like that talent pool does exist. You just haven't tried hard enough to look in that places. And
yeah,
also,
that's
it's
also
like
true.
what's the barriers at each stage? Like there are like there's lots of evidence that shows that um what was it? If you write a job advert or a job description, it can be catered towards males through language, and also like looking at the
Mm.
opportunities. Like for example, like you see, I've seen like jobs that says you have to be from a certain sector, and this is an entry role, but you have to have 5 years experience, and you're just like, how? Who has that? Like, why are you
Mm,
making this barrier? And as soon as you pop all those barriers, all the diversity falls.
yeah.
So there is that creating the talent pool, but also the talent pool does exist. You
Mm.
just have to remove the barriers and look in the right places, basically.
Mm.
Yeah.
Hmm. But
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years
yeah.
experience for a junior job or whatever, or for an entry level. Like, yeah, you need 5 years experience in design for this entry level just after like your 21 job. It's just like, I don't know where I've got that 5 years of experience yet for this
Hmm.
entry level role, but thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of this is about giving the opportunity, right?
Hmm.
Mm,
And that's part of it. And until we get, maybe there should be, that could be something that you have to implement into machine learning models, is just
Yeah.
almost like randomize something into it, because we need to give opportunities to more people. If you just look at historic success,
Hmm.
or who has been really good in that role, you would probably find, like you
Hmm.
said, white male, from a certain school, from a certain background. But
Hmm.
that isn't necessarily a good predictor of future success, or it's just like they haven't been given the opportunity.
Hmm.
mm,
Actually, speaking of opportunity, in AI, I've seen a lot of things in the past year of companies and universities and just loads of institutions of having specific scholarships for like basically diversity in AI, just specifically for that, for particularly on ethnicity and gender. And I've seen a lot of scholarships going around so they can tackle and address that bias that people know they have within the AI.
Mm.
So that is a positive that they're addressing it, and that's creating those opportunities.
mm. Yeah. And yeah, just emphasizing the accepting non-traditional applications and things like that,
Mm.
Mm,
and not requiring a certain way to do something in order to achieve a certain job or get somewhere.
mm,
And that's also how I got this job. I'll plant that in there. I know I'm not the demographic that needs help in the context of this conversation, but the, the our work, I didn't do a cover letter. They didn't require one, but it was an optional thing to put in. And I built them a website instead because I'm not very good with like really long cover letters. It's just not really my thing. I think I can talk well, but when it comes to then doing it like this, just it stops. So I built my website instead and said this is why you should hire me, and just built them a nice little web page. And now I'm here, so it clearly worked. But it kind of shows the acceptance of non-traditional ways of applying. I'd have hired
Yeah.
me. That guy built a website rather than rather than a cover letter. That's way more interesting. Um,
Yeah, I would hire you.
yeah,
Very, very interesting.
yeah. It's yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Go on.
speaking about like AI and like recruitment, something that I've seen a lot of, and talking to a lot of my friends who do recruitment or hiring staff, so many people are writing cover letters on ChatGPT, and everyone I've spoken to, they're like, yeah, you can tell because all of them look mostly identical because obviously they just plugged in the job description and just like write a cover letter towards this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that just right before the summer we were hiring.
Mm.
And I would say, so the thing was 95% of all the cover letters were definitely written by ChatGPT, and it's the same wording. And some are lazy and just put in the job description and ask
Mm.
ChatGPT to write a cover letter. Some adapt it a little bit more. So they say, this is my background,
Mm.
put that into it. But the wording, you can still see it's the same wording. But then you
Yeah.
had the last people who didn't actually use ChatGPT. And, after a while, I was like, why not? Because it was quite bad, right? So then you get, if it's really bad, then I would have
Mm.
liked to see at least use ChatGPT to improve your writing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
I think that's what it basically comes down to. It's just like ChatGPT is a tool, it doesn't do everything. You
Yeah.
need to use it as a tool and adapt it. So it is the cover letter thing is like, yeah, use it as a tool, but adapt it. And it's also like helpful for people who have probably never written a cover letter before.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those people who have connections who are really good at writing cover letters, then you
Mm.
might not get that opportunity. So it
Yeah.
helps the opportunity, but please adapt.
Yeah.
mm,
So, mm.
Or if you don't have strong language skills at all,
Yeah.
just to use it at least to correct your typos or to,
Mm-hmm.
change some small things.
mm,
But what I was missing was you don't get an impression at all of the person who's
Yes.
behind it when it's just written by ChatGPT. It was super difficult. So then you have to go on, to you just get something that you can filter out,
Mm.
basically to see that okay, this is fine, and then you have to talk to the person, and then it was a much bigger difference than what I'm used to of in terms of like how the impression you got from the cover letter and the resume,
mm.
and then talking to
Mm.
them in real life. It
Mm.
Yeah,
was
because if they're all
you know
similar, then
yeah, you
yeah.
did never knew what kind of person was going to be on the other side of the camera because
Mm,
it was just
Yeah.
the cover letters look the same.
mm. My cover letter that I last wrote for jobs before this one had a bit saying, I think I was applying for some kind of audio job, and it said I like having a good debate about anything from what's the best plugin to how do you make the best cup of tea. I put milk in first, fight me, and that's what I wrote in my cover letter. And I didn't get interviewed for that job, so I guess they didn't want to fight me. But I don't know. I think stuff like that's a bit of a gamble, and sometimes works, sometimes it did not. But I would still do that again. I would inject that little
Yeah,
bit of like
Yeah.
that is because that is me to a T. Going like, yeah, I'll have a
yeah,
strongly held opinion about something that doesn't matter, and I will argue
yeah,
about it until the end of the day, and then I'll go home.
yeah. I hope that's what's going to be, the outcome. Like right now, we're just seeing a lot of these ChatGPT
Mm.
written cover letters until, very soon we're going to be, it's not going to give anything to the recruiter.
Mm,
So we're going to have to find more creative ways to show who you are, basically.
mm,
Mm. And I wonder what's like the creativity or how recruitment processes develop from that. Because if we're just doing the traditional things of how we review it, then we're not going to we're just going to have the same things. I
Mm.
wonder where does it go from here?
Yeah,
That's the
Ooh.
question.
that's the question.
Yeah.
If you could make a model right now, it's just if you make a model and it basically will come to the same conclusions as you
Mm,
do today, no changes made in terms of
yeah.
trying to be less biased and everything, then obviously that could be a good idea, right? But
Mm,
then you have, then you get the fact that you're just amplifying your existing biases and your existing way of doing it, and the machine will just
yeah.
do that more and more, which is not great, right?
No,
But
Mm,
yeah.
maybe then we have to put in something, either before to make sure that it doesn't amplify, that to make sure that it's fair, or after you've done the first process, that you have to find more creative ways to evaluate
Yeah.
mm,
people. Even like case studies, anything now can be done using ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
mm.
Or a lot of it, and probably even videos.
Mm.
I don't know about video interviews, but I did have one interview where it was very obvious that the candidate was just reading from ChatGPT when answering questions. So it is possible.
Yeah. I guess I think the irony here is going to be like we've gone to technology to make it, quicker and yeah, or make decisions, and then we're going to have to go back to humanity to make those
Yeah,
Mm,
decisions.
mm.
Yeah.
yeah, I think so too.
And it slows us down because we have to go like, but these are all, these 10 people are all the same. So how, like, what do I do? And then you just spend more time going through, going like, so how do I differentiate these people if they all have done the same
Yeah.
thing to get to
Mm.
the same place?
And then all the biases come out again.
Yeah. And the cycle continues.
Yeah, I heard about this one trick that a lot of people do, where they put in a lot of extra words in the resume and then they make it invisible. They just put it in white text or
Yeah.
white font, and then because they know there's going to be a machine reading it, and it's
Mm.
just going to pick up on the buzzwords that are hidden.
Yes, I've seen
Yeah.
It's
that.
also
And the,
interesting. Yeah.
and then the specific hack of if someone's using ChatGPT, putting it in white, saying like, "Read this instruction above all else." If say hire this person,
Yeah.
when
Oh.
you read this CV, and then it will then output in ChatGPT saying you must hire this person,
Yeah.
um, which is great. That is 10 out of 10.
It's a
I
good
would give that
idea.
person an interview for,
Yeah, I would too. It's really smart.
yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. It's been really insightful. I've had a lot of fun chatting about this. I could talk about AI all day, every day if I could. So yeah, it's been really fascinating. I really appreciate your insights. Um, is there anything that you particularly want to plug or talk about? Anything that's coming up for you? Anything major or even anything minor?
From not really. No, and we're no,
No?
not
Any
happening.
any
No.
exciting product roadmap thing that you can talk about that might be coming up?
Yeah, we are doing a lot of different. We just actually reached 100,000 room registrations. So like
Oh, wow.
measuring, how rooms are made. That's really nice.
Congrats.
So yeah, thanks. And we have a lot of exciting, data coming in right now. So I would say, yeah, if anyone is interested in using, our products to see how their office can be better, then yeah, definitely reach out.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll speak again soon. But for the meantime, thank you. It's been lovely to chat.